It all began about 6 months earlier at the UK premiere, where we'd built a solar-powered cinema in London's Leicester Square, and we'd linked that by satellite to more than 60 cinemas all around the country, thereby setting a new Guinness World Record. And we also got the box office #1. But at that event, one of the satellite technicians said to me, it would be just as easy to link the satellite to cinemas all around the world, globally. And so from that moment on, we were obsessed with doing a global premiere. The dream was to persuade hundreds of cinemas all across the world to not only screen our film, but also a big live event packed full of celebrities and politicians and also with live music. It was going to be the biggest live film event the world had ever seen. At this stage, we weren't really thinking through the problems of, time zones or how we were going to translate the live event into all the different languages. The basic problem, there was no grown-ups involved. We just saw that we had an opportunity to use our film to bring people together all across the world and hopefully galvanise them into action, in the crucial last few months when we could still avert the worst of the climate catastrophe. And from that point of view, there was, of course, only one country to be the centre of operations: America.
Welcome to Team Stupid HQ in New York. And no, we haven't gone into daytime TV production, as the sign may indicate, the Martha Stewart sign, but we're being housed in the Martha Stewart studios. So I'm not quite sure how we ended up with a wicked, massive office in Chelsea for free. But when I called up this company, they're called All Mobile Video, the president of the company, I just happened to speak to him, and he loves our project. He said it's like nothing else he's ever seen. He's always kind of going, what are you doing? And how are you doing it? And who are all those people in your office working for free? We recruited on Facebook and Twitter. Within 24 hours, I think, of our first ad, we had 5 really great people working for us.
I'm Julia, and I'm the NGO coordinator, global NGO coordinator.
I am the runner around the town, kind of like the gopher.
I'm stalking every American I can find to try to fill out 440 seats.
And I am trying to get the word out to all of my friends and family.
What's wrong with you? Bitch, come see my movie.
This film needs you.
Will people in the future call our time the age of stupid?
Events like ours, trying to get publicity, really live or die on how many celebrities come to them. We were really lucky that from early on we had Kofi Annan agreed to speak, we had Thom Yorke, who was definitely going to play, and we knew Gillian Anderson could come.
Experts for a live one-night event, September 21st, in select movie theaters nationwide.
We picked the 21st of September because it was the day before the UN General Assembly, and they were doing a special day on climate change, and all the world's media, all the politicians, all the activists, everybody was coming together in New York to talk about climate change. I am texting the UK's climate change minister, Ed Miliband, because he's just told us that the Prime Minister has told him that he's got to deputise for him and go to this really posh dinner, and he can't now come to our premiere, which is a disaster, because I've written him into the script and he's got a really great role. So I'm texting him, trying to persuade him to dump the important dinner full of presidents and world leaders and come to our premiere instead. Shit. Frankly, we couldn't not have Ed Miliband at our event because he was the most senior politician, somebody who was actually going to Copenhagen representing, a major country that we'd persuaded to attend. Funnily enough, we weren't hearing, we weren't getting response from Obama or the Chinese president. We could say that, okay, if you bring Obama, he can sit next to Gillian Anderson. Sarkozy, he can have
Shalom Harlow, the new supermodel that's coming.
Putin.
Moby?
So we basically hatched this plan with Ed's team that he would excuse himself from the dinner, step outside and speak to us via a satellite truck. The next problem was that because of the UN Climate Week, there was no satellite trucks left in New York. They were all booked. So one had to drive from Boston. Don't think about the emissions. And then the next problem was that we found out there was a huge security cordon around the world leaders' dinner. So Ed was then going to have to excuse himself from the dinner, run 5 blocks, speak to us via the satellite truck, and then run back 5 blocks and, go back for dessert or whatever.
On the day of the premiere itself, I started to realise how out of control this whole event had got. I mean, it was kind of ludicrous when there's like 14, 15 men putting up a huge tent in downtown Manhattan.
We didn't just want to make the biggest live film event ever seen, we also wanted to make the most eco. Instead of making tapes or making prints and them all being sent to all the cinemas all around the world, you just hire a big satellite truck and they send out the beam, whatever it is, and the cinemas all around the world capture that beam somehow. And so you save all the emissions. Plus, of course, instead of everybody coming to one central event, everybody just goes to their local cinemas, and so again, much, much less emissions. At the UK premiere, we powered the whole thing by solar energy. We hadn't been plugged into the mains at all. And we had wanted to do the same thing for the US one. But then a couple of weeks before the event, it became clear that basically doing that would cause more emissions because the only solar power setup thing that we could find was so far away on the other side of the country that it would have to drive all the way to New York, and that would cause more emissions. So we very sadly had to give up the idea of it being solar powered. But then somebody had the clever idea of using all biodiesel. Now, before you say, not biodiesel from rainforests, chopped down rainforests, but biodiesel from waste, from New York waste, I believe, as well. Air conditioning is usually a huge part of the emissions of an event like this. So it was going to be zero air conditioning. So instead, we got a gang of volunteers, including Gillian Anderson, to come to the office and make paper fans for our guests. All the food and drink was, of course, organic and local. In fact, some of it was very, very local because we had some edible decor grown in Brooklyn for our guests to graze on. The green carpet was made from recycled soda bottles. We had a beautiful display of exactly the number of bottles that America uses, plastic bottles, every second.
Mark in the truck, this is Lizzie. Moby's going to be ready to play or playing in 5-10 minutes.
Show business, right there. You see that? Fucking show business.
And then there was Moby's sound system, which was all powered by pedal power.
I was just wondering why you have gotten involved in the Age of Stupid campaign.
Well, climate change in general. I mean, there are a lot of other issues that I'm involved in, whether it's human rights or animal rights or environmental issues, and I work with a lot of different political organizations. But for me, all of those sort of fall by the wayside if you have 1 billion climate change refugees. You know, and if suddenly the price of food is 100 times what it is now. So before we can deal with any other issue, we sort of have to take care of the fact that 1 billion people on the planet might be dislocated because of climate change.
Everyone else who did come to the New York event had to come by, of course, low-carbon transport, so bikes, bike rickshaws, electric cars, boats, rowing boats, sailing boats, rollerblades, skateboards. We had them all. Now, flying is, of course, the big one when it comes to emissions, so only 4 crew members flew from London. Everybody else was local New Yorkers, and none of our celebrity guests were allowed to fly in. We only invited people who we knew were already going to be in New York.
And in Copenhagen, it's a little more than 50% of all the inhabitants who ride a bike every day to their work. So I think that's very good for the climate.
We couldn't afford proper branding boards, so we had volunteers physically holding posters behind the celebrities as they talked to the world's media.
It points to every aspect of the situation that we're in right now and the impact that we've had across the globe in such a poignant and heartbreaking way. It really shook me up afterwards. I had a hard time responding to questions that were being asked, and it moves you to action in a way that I haven't been moved to action before.
For the UK premiere, we had a team of eco-auditors, and they worked out that we produced 1%, only 1% of the emissions of a similar premiere. For the global premiere, unfortunately, we just frankly didn't have the cash to have a similar team of eco-auditors. But I reckon we used about 10%, and that was because of the 4 flights that we took from London. But it's still not bad.
We have leaders of some of the most prominent non-profit organizations around the world. Right now, people should be putting pressures on their government to go to Copenhagen to work for a fair, ambitious and binding climate treaty that actually sets us in a path of a green economy that is sustainable and that reverses the catastrophic effects of climate change.
As you can see. Hi Heather, thank you for joining us tonight.
Climate change is obviously like one of the most important things facing us today, and I think we need to stop it, obviously, or else we're screwed.
Yeah, in a nutshell, is there anything that you're doing on a personal level to help make your life more green?
Well, I switched to a renewable energy provider. Like I drive a hybrid car, educating myself. I just started a garden, recycling, not using as much electricity, turning things off.
Can you possibly explain what I'm looking at?
These are survivables, which are corporate America's solution to climate change.
Well, it's a self-sustaining living device in which a corporate CEO can be maintained no matter what the climate calamity hits.
And what about for the rest of us?
Well, even if all of you die, CEOs will go on living in these.
It's great. I'm peeing inside mine right now and drinking it.
So while all this madness was going on in New York, as if that wasn't enough, all the other countries, all the other 62 countries around the world were gearing up for their own premiere.
Iedereen kan afgedankte... Klimaatfilm The Age of Stupid gaat vanavond wereldwijd in premiere.
Problemet på dagsordenen og ligesom gør det sådan, så man virkelig kan mærke indvendigt, at det her det handler.
Un llamado de atención muy serio, la película esta de hecho lo es, lo dice de una manera muy cruda, muy dramática.
Age of Stupid, care au fost extraordinari și...
In Thailand, we've got a TV screening to 4.5 million homes.
Pete Postlethwaite, the star of the film, he was going to come to New York to be there with us, but then for personal reasons he couldn't in the end. But all around the world, the documentary stars of the film were actually watching. Fernand was in his local cinema in Chamonix in France. Laefa was in Lagos in Nigeria. Al, he was actually with us in New York because he's from New Orleans. And Piers, he's seen the film a few times, so he didn't actually go, but we did speak to him on the phone. He was in Denmark.
We've got a rooftop in Dar es Salaam for 30 people. Okay, cool.
The only sad thing was that we really tried to find the Iraqi kids who the last time we'd seen them were in Amman, but the contacts we had in Amman, they went back to their house and to other places, the market and stuff, and couldn't find them. So it's pretty worrying that we don't know where they are.
Who's a long-term Greenpeace supporter, runs a well-known cinema and arts centre.
Okay, so Romania. Cool, that sounds good. We don't have much information for Kosovo. Palestinian territories. Do we have more information about Papua New Guinea? Peru, that's cinema screens. Swaziland, what's happening there? Sierra Leone, that sounds good. Singapore. Okay, I'll add the information about that. So the guy from Jordan has gone to Beirut to pick up the DVD from the Lebanon contact. Taiwan, it's really good, wow. Zimbabwe sold out. And all the money goes towards tree seeds.
After the film played, there was a live event in New York featuring all sorts of speakers, and all of what they said had to be translated into French, German, Italian and Spanish, ready to be rebroadcast a couple of hours later as each time zone caught up. And in true Stupid style, this was the first time anyone had ever done this kind of nearly live translating.
And they had experienced technical difficulties, so we received the footage a little late, which meant my subtitling teams got started late and were frantically translating onto HD tapes that would be broadcast via satellite that evening. Everything looked okay up until about midday when the first tapes were due to be ready and they weren't, and we discovered some time code and sync problems. So I got on a train eventually to Winchester, which is where the broadcast would be going out from. And I arrived approximately 10 minutes before the broadcast started. And France, Spain and Germany arrived within 5 minutes of needing to be broadcast across Europe, one of them within less than a minute.
A lot of people say to us that our film is exaggerated and this is not the actual science of climate change. So I'd love to ask you, is our film scientifically accurate or did we make the whole thing up?
It's entirely correct that the world has to ensure that if we want to limit temperature increase to 2 to 2.4 degrees Celsius, we have to ensure that global emissions peak no later than 2015. And that's entirely correct. And I think it's also important to talk about basic lifestyles. I don't think we can duck under the sand any longer and tell ourselves that what we've been pursuing as what we call development is going to continue forever. It can't continue forever.
I'm very proud to be here to represent our 5 million members who deeply believe that our country's age of stupid ended in November 2008. And we are working. Our members work on a daily basis to lobby our Congress and to empower our new president, President Obama, to know that he has the political winds at his back when he goes to Copenhagen, because they believe in his vision that this is not just a moral and an environmental call, but this is actually the end of the false dichotomy between economy and environment.
This is a real war. It's a threat to our health, threat to our economic and social development. It can create tensions. It's a threat to clean drinking water for lots of people, and so it is a very, very different kind of problem, perhaps the biggest challenge we face in our world today. This is an issue of concern to everyone. We all need to have our voices heard. We should send the message out to the leaders that we want to protect this planet. We should have such a shout that they cannot afford to ignore it.
The highlight of our UK premiere had undoubtedly been when we did a live link-up to the Maldives, and the president had made a major policy announcement. So when we heard that he was in town in New York, we thought we should invite him to the global premiere and give him a special present. May I just please present you with this certificate for being the first country in the world to commit to going carbon neutral, and you're going to do it in 10 years' time. They're going to go completely carbon neutral. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. I've been speaking to my friend who works at Greenpeace, and he happened to mention that they've got a lot of satellite equipment in their boats or whatever. And so, which is red rag to a bull, of course, to mention that to me. And so the Greenpeace India team found themselves hiking up into the Himalayan glaciers. They were supposed to actually get a Jeep, but the late monsoon washed out the road, so they had to hike with their satellite gear in their backpacks with the director of Elizabeth, well-known film director Shekhar Kapoor. Not quite sure how he got involved, but he was absolutely brilliant, as you're about to see.
Shekhar, can you hear me?
On my left here is a glacier that you can see. We're looking at the Lahaul Valley, and right down there where you see the valley used to be a complete glacier. It's all retreated. It's gone right back here. We can't see it anymore. And this is happening to all the Himalayan glaciers all over the Himalayas now. You have to remember that the Himalayan glaciers, they feed all the rivers that go to China, they go to India, they go to Pakistan, and they provide sustenance and water to 1.3 billion people. And if these glaciers, and the Himalayan glaciers are going down and they're retreating faster than any other glacier in this, any other glaciers all over the world, and as they go, they're saying that in about 25 to 30 years, they will not, or they may not exist anymore. If they don't exist, we've got 1.3 billion people that will be without water. And if they're without water and ground levels are already going down, these people will start moving to cities. And if they start moving to cities, the cities will run out of water. And we are standing at the brink of an absolute catastrophe that we've never seen. So we are here actually begging, asking, pleading for people, please do something about it. Thank you. Over back to New York.
Meanwhile, a second Greenpeace team was battling their way through an Indonesian rainforest. And we'd done a test earlier in the day, and the satellite worked brilliantly, it all looked great. But then when it came to the actual event, there was some problem in the Arctic, because I think the satellite was going to bounce from their rucksacks, from their gear in the Indonesia to the Greenpeace boat in the Arctic, up into space, and then down to us in New York. That was the plan, I think. But there was some problem in the Arctic, so that didn't work. So they took the decision to use Skype, everybody's favourite, which is why the quality looked a bit rough. But we could still get the central point, which is it's absolutely crucial to get forests into the New Deal at Copenhagen.
Deforestation rate in Indonesia is 2 million hectares per year, and it contributes to 63% of our carbon emissions.
Ed Miliband. I got a text during the live event as all this was going on from Ed Miliband's team saying that the world leaders' dinner had actually finished early. You know, did they have nothing to talk about? Anyway, so Ed said that he could now come. A bit of an awkward moment when we had to tell the satellite truck that had come from Boston that they were no longer required. But anyway, Ed rocked up. The best deal that's currently on the table is the EU position, and if that deal got accepted, which is a very big if, but if it did, that would give us about a 50-50 chance of not hitting the dreaded 2 degrees. 2 degrees is where we enter runaway climate change, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 5 to 6. By the time we hit 6, it's about over for life on Earth. So Ed, why do you only want to give us a 50-50 chance?
I want to give you the maximum chance. Look, let me congratulate you, Franny, on this fantastic global premiere. The key thing for the world in December is to get a deal that does something that has not been done before in the industrialized history of the globe, which is to turn around the inexorable rise in emissions. That will make all kinds of things possible in the future. And you're right, we can't accept simply a 50-50 chance of avoiding 2 degrees, but the truth is that we are doing something that has never been done before, which is to turn around that rise in emissions. And that, for me, is the key to what we need in December.
Thanks for your politician answer, all the way around the houses. But I still don't understand, the elected leaders, we've given you the responsibility. And obviously, it wasn't you yourself, but for the last 20 years, the world has failed to act on climate change. Our emissions have been going up and up and up. We've achieved less than nothing. Isn't it the greatest failing of political leadership the world has ever seen?
The problem about what you're saying is that it sounds quite defeatist. It sounds like even if we get a deal, it's not going to be good enough. I want the maximum possible deal that we can get because it is absolutely urgent we do it. There is a unique window of opportunity, and as I say, it's our responsibility, it's political leaders and their representatives' responsibility to lead, but it is also the public's responsibility to push them, and we need more pushing between now and December.
So we've got a really good following on Twitter now, and also we've added something to our homepage, which is really cool, which is this live blogging thing. Like, we're getting tweets here that we don't understand at all, because they're coming back in Chinese. We had this one a few minutes ago, which none of us can understand, but it has the word "age stupid" in it, so...
We also had to download a file, which was coming from Lizzie, which was photos of audiences across the world. And when I say across the world, ultimately we were in over 60 countries. That was downloaded 16 seconds before it was broadcast.
We're lucky to have Thom Yorke, who's the lead singer of Radiohead and who's been a supporter of the film, joining us live via satellite. Thom, can you hear me? I'm praying that you can, because we've had some trouble. Oh,
Hi.
We're lucky.
I think you're all saying everything that needs to be said, so I'm just going to play the song.
Thom, thank you so much. I don't know if you even got a chance to hear the applause in the room, but thank you so much for participating in this. And is there anything that you'd like to say to the 440 cities and 63 countries watching now?
Well, the only thing is that I like the point that's just been made about economic growth, the economy. I think Ed Miliband probably knows this, but won't admit it, as most politicians won't, that the concept of limitless economic growth is now dead.
There's not much time for applause, and there's certainly not much time for climate change, and there's not much time for this satellite link. I just want to say that every generation that came before us didn't know about this problem. Every generation that follows, it'll be too late for them to do anything about it. So it is down to us. And other generations did manage to solve their big problems. They did end slavery. They did overturn apartheid. There's no question about what it is that our generation has to do and how we're going to be remembered. And so there's nothing intrinsically more stupid or more useless about us. The only question is whether we give it a go or not.
Oh!